2013. YouTube. An era of some of the most iconic yet controversial content that the platform has ever seen. Or so I've heard. I was a little bit preoccupied at the time. But you guys already know that story. Today, we're here to talk about one of the first internet crazes that I actually missed out on, and how one guy's influence became so strong that it defined the entire era. Its impact would have far-reaching consequences that nobody could have seen coming, leaving behind a legacy that YouTube, and even its creator, would try to forget. Now, the internet's always been a little toxic, to say the least. I mean, you give somebody complete anonymity and hide them behind a screen, and you get the results. For a vast percentage of the early internet's existence, most of humanity basically used it to look at cute cat videos. 'Twas a simpler time when the only thing you'd really see from your relatives on your Facebook page was maybe a Farmville invite from your Aunt Gretchen, and the non-stop feed of absurdities that is common in everyday life today didn't really exist yet. But it was a time of transition for the internet, and just as we'd transitioned from MySpace into Facebook, YouTube was beginning to transition as well, as billions of users across the globe were able to access it from their pocket with the mobile phones now, and accessibility and outreach reached an all-time high. Now, I've covered memes I missed in prison before, alright, but this one's a little bit different. The trends of the internet come and go with the days. The tides rise and fall quickly. Back in my day, memes weren't quite as mainstream as they are now. Now, I had just begun to see things like the impact font leaking over into Reddit and social media of other platforms in 2012, but the 4chan internet culture that had dominated there for years was just beginning to become mainstream. As an example of where we stood in the internet culture at the time in 2012, okay, I was 19 when I got arrested. All of my friends were about 18 to 20. And just a few weeks before I got locked up, they were all talking about this brand new meme called Neon Cat. Actually, another friend of mine called it a meme. So that's how new the word spreading to the normies was, you know. People were still pronouncing it wrong back in 2012. But up until now, a lot of these memes had lurked in the dark corners of the internet, which, with the new explosion of users worldwide with the advent of smartphones, was suddenly shining light into those corners. While I was gone, social media rose to the influence that it has today, a daily part of everyone's lives. At the time of my arrest, we used to say, how much does a hipster weigh? An Instagram. So again, I mean, we didn't know what was going on with the internet. We didn't know what was the next big thing. With the explosion of social media really becoming the focal point of the internet, it was only a matter of time before these tides would transition again. Apparently, this was one of the biggest memes of all time, and it also happens to be the first major one that I missed during my little unscheduled vacation to Talladega. And that story starts with a dance. Okay, well, not a dance exactly. Y'all remember the Harlem Shake? I don't, but you guys probably do, given its worldwide popularity. I mean, the concept was simple enough, you know. One jackass in a ski mask dancing in a big public area and everybody acts like they can't see him. Next thing you know, the beat drops and everybody's doing the Johnny Bravo. It quickly devolves into what can only be described as a costume dance party at Halloween generated by AI that was fed a script to WrestleMania. This is bananas. But even though I missed it, when LeBron James takes part in a meme, you know it's a cultural phenomenon. I mean, everybody was doing it. Every high school pep rally, every corporation. Hell, even The Simpsons had one. The Simpsons had one. While researching this video, I learned that the producer of the song is actually quite underappreciated. The DJ who produced the song, Bauer, actually used uncleared samples and was not able to claim any royalties from it, but it was released under Diplo's Mad Decent record label. And while he's not the one who started the meme, he's the one who made the song. And this meme would go on to give him some recognition and credibility in the industry, including him releasing more albums. He actually had a 2020 release called Planets Mad that was nominated for a Grammy, so I mean, props, dude. A Grammy ain't bad for a guy whose most popular work was a living, breathing meme. I mean, chase your dreams, kids, but none of that blanking shit. But all of that information took me back to the source. For every meme, there must be a credit, a creator, somebody who dared to post, or something like that. On February 2nd, 2013, video blogger and musician known as Filthy Frank uploaded a video in character as his creation Pink Guy, the original video of the Harlem Shake. It was a silly video by any measure, featuring Filthy Frank and a few of his friends wearing masks and doing the weekend at Bernie's before gradually deciding to let the intrusive thoughts win. But even with this goofy formula, the video got over 350,000 views in a week. Now, Filthy Frank, also known as George Joji Miller, was no stranger to online success. He was a Japanese-Australian artist who grew up in Osaka, and his YouTube channel Disaster Music had actually been uploading quite consistently since 2008, featuring a lot of his antics and characters. He had become known for his comedic stylings that leaned into sarcastic renditions of cultural stereotypes. But nothing he had ever done would see the impact that the Harlem Shake meme had. After years of creating characters and music and scenarios and all of this for his channel, with just one video he had dwarfed the view count of his entire body of work. Now, given the nature of his content, we should probably say that it was a different time back then. The algorithmic suppression that happens today, as well as the societal standards, were both a lot different. As mentioned earlier, YouTube and the internet at wide was becoming much more mainstream, which meant more people would see these things, and advertisers have to take note. YouTube had been around for less than 10 years at this point. While there were, of course, massive YouTubers who had been doing this for years, YouTube was largely still trying to find its niche. I mean, bro, YouTube was the Wild West back then. Let me tell you, none of this could be done today without serious demonetization. But in this dawning age of internet access, many of these adult-like random scenarios had been largely shunted to late-night television and Adult Swim, things of that nature. But now, anybody could access them with a click. And absurdity was taking over. And people were doing more and more outrageous things to get attention on the internet. TV had a rating system for this sort of thing. YouTube didn't. And Filthy Frank leaned right into it. This new age of say anything, do anything content on YouTube was getting tons of engagement and exploding a new era of YouTube. He created characters and antics, and I mean, some people can call them pranks, but it's mostly just dick moves. But one of the focal points throughout all of his videos was a love for music, whether it was featuring other artists or Mr. Pink rapping himself. That's what we call foreshadowing. It was a simple formula. He was vulgar and crass and stoically aggressive, and the teens that were the dominating force of the internet at this time could not get enough of it. And overnight, basically, Joji found himself from a quirky YouTuber making strange videos of weird characters to being an overnight sensation. And he rode that wave to the top, pulling down subscribers and view counts that are impressive even by today's standards. But this ushered in an era of YouTube that I still see people arguing about today on Twitter. X. Twitter. Call it whatever you want, different name, same dumpster fire. And since I missed out on all of this, I see that and I had some learning to do. And the way that all this wrapped up was the most shocking part to me. This style of video would go on to influence major generations of YouTubers. I mean, we're talking iDubbbz, Max Mofo, Anything for Views, H3H3 Productions, and many, many more people. His content lived by the phrase, everybody gets the shit. And he would even go on to collaborate with some of the biggest creators on the platform like PewDiePie and Vsauce. Most of these pranks would be in character as one of the Filthy Frank creations. Skits, gross out, slapstick, you name it, it was like its own branch of shock comedy. He would go up and eat ravioli out of his shirt pocket and then pretend to have a seizure on an elevator in a public place. As he pushed more and more boundaries, the viewership rose. And as one by one creators were getting shot down or canceled or put under a microscope for these terrible things that they were doing, Joji remained standing. And many people saw him as the antithesis of this politically correct culture and flocked to him as the outlet for their own views. But as time went on, things would take an unfortunate turn for Miller. On May 3rd of 2014, he uploaded a video called Filthy Frank Exposes Himself, but it's not like that. It was more of his emotions, and he talked very honestly about needing some privacy as a college student and the negative health effects that he had had as a result of the stress from the success of his channel. He also felt it important to clarify for his audience that the characters that he portrayed in the videos were just characters, and that he didn't necessarily agree with anything that they did or said during his fictional creations. He would later delete this video and start uploading content to a dedicated Filthy Frank channel, possibly the result of him having a lot of strikes and wanting to preserve the legacy of that channel. And despite the fact that he had just said that he wanted to slow things down and maybe he wasn't as dedicated to the characters as people had initially thought, this new channel pushed these concepts much, much further. No topic was too taboo, and no prank was too gross or too far. And that's all fun and games until you get to about 2016. Now, there's long been debates about the reasoning behind the decision. Some say it was just a few bad apples spoiling the bunch, and some say it was complete negligence on YouTube's part to keep their site clean. But whichever way you view it, the adpocalypse came. Completely destroyed many YouTube channels overnight, with the likes of even Philip DeFranco suddenly seeing major demonetization. Bro, if Philly D's getting hit, everybody's getting hit. Clearly, this climate of online internet toxicity was beginning to drastically change. Now, surprisingly, this actually put a target on Joji's back, because many people pointed back to him for bringing in this new era of toxicity and unshielded words on YouTube. Other people thought that it was unfair and that he was being lumped in with creators who had taken his loose ideas and gone much too far with them. And even though the videos in question that people pointed to weren't his, a lot of people considered him to be the straw that broke the camel's back. Near the end of 2017, he would announce that he was quitting comedy on YouTube, citing lack of enjoyment and health concerns as reasons. And all of this happened while I was temp banned from society. This caught many people off guard and they wondered, what's next? Though he would later say that he didn't just want to be remembered for Filthy Frank, it's very clear that he always had a passion for music. Like I said, a common theme throughout all of these characters and antics, and whether they were joke songs or not, was music. He He played various instruments throughout his childhood, and though he admitted he never became a master of any of them, that musicality definitely helped shape his mindset and his creative vision moving forward on YouTube. He wasted no time and released his first official single as Joji near the end of 2017, which would actually go on to become gold in Canada. His debut album, Ballads 1, has actually won several records, believe it or not. His change didn't come without a struggle, as many of his most dedicated fans were enraged that he would turn his back on the Filthy Frank universe. But many people were looking forward to seeing what his sincere musical output would be. So he definitely still had a lot of supporters, but he also knew he was going to be gaining a lot more by breaking into the music industry. On the topic of comedy, in an interview with Billboard, he would say, "It was a humor that I started when I was in high school. So naturally, as I got older, I got tired of that humor. People's tastes change, people's humor change." When asked if he was worried about his music not being taken seriously due to his past antics, he essentially said he was going to let the music speak for himself, believing that his fan base had not only highly requested serious music from him, but basically demanded it.
Do you ever have concerns that people don't take the Joji stuff seriously because of the other characters that you've played?
I don't have any concerns, really. I mean, obviously there's a little concern all the time, because I'm just always prepared for the worst, but the reason I made the transition was because there was an overwhelming support and almost demand. Like, I knew I had to do it.
He also had expressed unhappiness with the creative direction of Filthy Frank, and I think this was kind of a way for him to spread his wings. Even though the music was critically acclaimed, YouTube would continue to change, and many creators that had said or done terrible things in the past were now being held to task for them, and outcry began to increase for Joji to make some sort of a formal apology or something for the things that he had done in the past. Between this and crazed fans acting like they had a right to know every detail of his life, it's not surprising that despite massive success in the industry, he would step away from the spotlight. And his 2022 album Smithereens actually has multi-platinum singles on it. Now a well-established musician, Joji should have the time and the creative freedom to do just about anything that he wants. Personal growth and change can be hard enough, but when all of your mistakes are on the internet and being scrutinized by the entire world, it's probably a little bit harder. And he never did openly lament or apologize for his time as Filthy Frank. It was very clear that Filthy Frank was never meant to be a role model or anything, but your intentions can only get you so far. The court of public opinion is what matters on the internet. As all artists know, not everyone's gonna see your vision. But in a way, that's kind of also the beauty of art. If art itself is a blade, then interpretation is the double-edged sword. Sometimes you do the cutting and sometimes you get cut. With Joji, when people were on social media lambasting him and calling for his career, he was receiving the cut. He tried to engage with it and nothing positive came from it. When he chose to focus on himself and keep his head down and do what he wanted to do, he was then delivering the cuts. Joji clearly came of age on the internet in one of its most explosive and controversial eras, and in some way, perhaps he will always be faulted for that, despite being kind of a product of his time. Whether you like him, love him, or hate him, his global success as a musician and his ubiquitous personality as a YouTuber have left a mark on pop culture that will be felt for years to come. I feel like that impact is pretty self-evident given how many people asked me to check out the Harlem Shake or Filthy Frank or any of the Pink Guy stuff. That was really wild for me seeing this in retrospect, getting out and having the story of this guy blowing up for this offensive material and then kind of wanting to get away from it a little bit and then becoming who I knew at the time of my getting out as a awesome musician. I like a lot of his songs, man, and it's really impressive to see what he went from to where he is now. But there might be an update. He dropped merch for Plumcore not too long ago, and he's been plugging it during his live shows. And that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to come out with anything soon, but he's also been linked to a few other little YouTube projects that are going on right now.
They must have amnesia. They forgot that I'm him.
Is there a return coming? Who knows? If so, I'll be here this time. But nothing concrete has come out yet, leaving us to wonder what, if anything, would be next. Alright everybody, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. I actually have some people helping me with the channel now, so once we get in the groove of things, I'll be able to crank out some content. I've got Photoshop, you know how it's going everybody. We're hitting the grind. Thank you so much everybody for watching, and I'll see you on Twitch.